Yet was struck by one thing above all else for the artist. When they were in the process of creation, time seemed to fall away. They almost appeared to be an hypnotic trance. It was a depth from of attention that you rarely see elsewhere. Then he noticed something puzzling. After investing all this time in creating their paintings, when they were finished, the artists didn't triumphantly gaze at what they had made and show it off and seek out praise for it. Almost all of them simply put the painting away and started working on another one. If Skinner was right, the human beings do things just to gain rewards and avoid punishments. This made no sense. You'd done the work. Now here's the reward, right in front of you, for you to enjoy. But creative people seemed mostly uninterested in rewards. Even money didn't interest most of them. When they finished, Miyari said to an interviewer later, the object, the outcome was not important. He wanted to understand what was actually driving them, what made it possible for them to focus on just one thing for so long. It became clear to Mihari that what was so enthralling about painting was something about the process of painting itself. But what? To try to understand this better, Miyari started to study adults who engaged in other activities, people who were long distance swimmers, or rock climbers, or chess players. He only looked at first at non professionals. Often they were doing things that were physically uncomfortable, exhausting, and even dangerous, for no obvious reward, yet they loved it. He talked to them about how they felt when they were doing the thing that drew this extraordinary focus out of them. He noticed that although these activities were very different, the way the people described how they felt had striking similarities. One word kept cropping up again and again. They kept saying things like, I was carried on by the flow. One rock climber told him later, the mystic of rock climbing is climbing. You get to the top of a rock glad it's over, but really wish it could go on forever. The justification of climbing is climbing, like the justification of poetry is writing. You don't conquer anything except things in yourself. The act of writing justifies poetry. Climbing is the same, recognizing you are a flow. The purpose of flow is to keep on flowing, not looking for a peak or utopia, but staying in the flow. It is not a moving up, but a continuous flowing. You move up to keep the flow going. Mihari began to wonder if these people were in fact describing a fundamental human instinct that had not been studied by scientists before. He called it a flow state. This is when you are so absorbed in what you are doing that you lose all sense of yourself, and time seems to fall away, and you are flowing into the experience itself. It is the deepest form of focus and attention that we know of. When he began to explain to people what a flow state is and asked if they had ever experienced something like it, 85% of them recognized and remembered at least one time they'd felt this way. And they often said these moments were the highlights of their lives. It didn't matter if they got there by performing brain surgery or strumming the guitar or making great bagels. They described their flow states with wonder. He found himself thinking back to being a child on the floor of a war smashed city, planning elaborate battles with his toy soldiers, and then to himself at the age of 13, exploring the hills and mountains around his refugee camp. He was discovering that if human beings drill down in the right way, we can hit a gusher of focus inside ourselves, a long surge of attention that will flow forth and carry us through difficult tasks in a way that feels painless and in fact pleasurable. So the obvious question is, where do we drill to get it? How can we bring about flow states? At first, most people assume they will achieve flow simply by relaxing into it. You picture yourself lying by the pool in Vegas, sipping a cocktail. But when he studied it, he found that in fact, relaxing rarely gets you into a flow state. You have to get there by a different route. Miali's studies identified many aspects of flow, but it seemed to me, as I read over them in detail, that if you want to get there, what you need to know boils down to three core components. The first thing you need to do is to choose a clearly defined goal. I want to paint this canvas. I want to run up this hill. I want to teach my child how to swim. You have to resolve to pursue it and to set aside your other goals while you do. Flow can only come when you are monotasking. When you choose to set aside everything else and do one thing. Mihaly found that distraction and multitasking kill flow, and nobody will reach flow if they are trying to do two or more things at the same time. Flow requires all of your brain power deployed towards one mission. Secondly, you have to be doing something that is meaningful to you. This is part of a basic truth about attention. We evolved to pay attention to things that are meaningful to us. As Roy Baumeister, the leading expert on willpower I quoted in the introduction, put it to me, a frog will look at a fly. It can eat much more than a stone it can't eat. To a frog, a fly is meaningful and a stone is not. So it easily pays attention to a fly and rarely pays attention to a stone. This, he says, goes back to the design of the brain. It's designed to pay attention to the stuff that matters to you. After all, the frog who sat around all day looking at stones would have starved. In any situation, it will be easier to pay attention to things that are meaningful to you, and harder to pay attention to things that seem meaningless. When you are trying to make yourself do something that lacks meaning, your attention will often slip and slide it off it. Thirdly, it will help if you are doing something that is at the edge of your abilities but not beyond them. If the goal you choose is too easy, you'll go into autopilot. But if it's too hard, you'll start to feel anxious or off kilter and you won't flow either. Picture a rock climber who has medium ranking experience and talent. If she clambers up any old brick wall at the back of a garden, she's not going to get into flow because it's too easy. If she's suddenly told to climb the side of Mount Kilimanjaro, she won't get into flow either because she'll freak out. What she needs is a hill or a mountain that is ideally slightly higher and harder than the one she did last time. So, to find flow, you need to choose one single goal. Make sure your goal is meaningful to you. and try to push yourself to the edge of your abilities. Once you have created these conditions and you hit low, you can recognize it because it's a distinctive mental state. You feel you are purely present in the moment. You experience a loss of self consciousness. In this state, it's like your ego has vanished and you have merged with the task, like you are the rock you are climbing. By the time I met him, Miyari was 87 and he had spent more than 5 decades studying flow states. He, along with scientists all over the world, had built up a broad and robust body of scientific evidence to show flow states are a real and deep form of human attention. They have also shown that the more flow you experience, the better you feel. Until his research, professional psychology in the US had been focused either on when things go wrong, when you're mentally distressed, or on the manipulative vision of B.F. Skinner. Miyari made the case for positive psychology that we should primarily focus on the things that make life worth living and find ways to boost them. This disagreement seemed to me to lay the groundwork for one of the defining conflicts in the world today. We now live in a world dominated by technologies based on B.F. Skinner's vision of how the human mind works. His insight that you can train living creatures to desperately crave arbitrary rewards has come to dominate our environment. Many of us are like those birds in cages being made to perform a bizarre dance to get rewards, and all the while we imagine we are choosing it for ourselves. The man I saw in Provincetown obsessively posting selfies to Instagram started to look to me like Skinner's pigeons with a six-pack and a pina colada. In a culture where our focus is stolen by these surface level stimuli, Miyari's deeper insight has been forgotten. That we have within us a force that makes it possible to focus for long stretches and enjoy it, and it will make us happier and healthier if only we create the right circumstances to let it flow. Once I knew this, I understood why, when I felt constantly distracted, I didn't just feel irritated, I felt diminished. We knew at some level that when we are not focusing, we are not using one of our greatest capacities. Starved of flow, we become stumps of ourselves, sensing somewhere what we might have been.